There, I'm Marianne Wilburn with the Small Town Gardener, and it occurred to me today as I was working in this ridiculous chaos that is my light box slash greenhouse slash get your plants through the winter no matter how you can, that it might be a good idea to share this chaos with you, because you may be feeling like your seed starting efforts aren't quite as picture perfect as everybody else's. But the reality is that they rarely are picture perfect. And I have the homemade camera and the homemade light box to show you just how imperfect they can be, because you should do it anyway. Here we are in a disused washroom that's attached to the barn at my house that no longer has plumbing, and is really just an old sink and an old shower stall. And this is a small space. Up at the top, I have old chains and strings holding 4-foot shop lights to hold on to some of the overwintered lovely plants that cannot make it through my mid-Atlantic Zone 7 winter. There's a very leggy mandeville there and a plectranthus, and there is a fig that recently broke dormancy in my garage, which I'm very excited about. This is a new one given to me, and needed a new home once it did that. There's Graptivaria, and there's Crassula, and there's Echeveria and Sedum. And in these, I'd like to say humidity domes, but they are actually garbage bags. We have little Forsyth pots full of cuttings. This one holds box, and that is actually an IKEA pot, which I don't think they expect it to be used this way, but hey, it works beautifully. This is another homemade Forsyth pot with a plant nanny down there and a bottle in there, and that's not actually scotch, it's water. And in here we have two very, very young Edgeworthia chrysantha, which is one of my very favorite shrubs, especially at this time of year. And hopefully they are putting down beautiful roots into that perlite vermiculite mix. And here are some little very tender babies that I brought back from Florida recently on a trip of a variegated tapioca. You see, this whole process is not a beautiful process. This is pretty darn ugly. You're not going to see this on a television show. But the actual plants, the cuttings, the seedlings, those are beautiful. I know that in a few short months, this tapioca is going to make me almost weep with joy when I see how beautiful it is. And those leaves are about 6 times as big as they are right now. There's another Forsyth pot, I think with its humidity dome there with plectranthus and box. And here's an aloe that I keep alive every winter, but much better that I keep it in here than it gets leggy in my living room without enough light and pokes anybody who walks by it. Here's a little heater. This is what keeps this little room warm. It's set to about 40 degrees in the early part of the winter, just over 40, 45, just to keep the frost off. And then as I start to bring more tropicals in, get cuttings rooted, get seedlings started, that has gone up now into the 60s. So we're sort of in the 65 region. And here is the world's ugliest seed starting rack, and 100% homemade, although I didn't forge the metal. I found the rack at a yard sale. The Jiffy pans, I think, are about 6 years old, and I think they're probably on their last year. This is a reflector / large casserole pan, and I'm growing everything from Thunbergia to cabbage. These are little Walmart lights. They're not very high quality, but they work, and they're all plugged in there, which is in turn plugged into a timer there, and they're fairly low wattage, so it's not a drain on the circuit. Down here, I've got a lot of already rooted, beautiful little plants of Ruellia ready for the garden next year. This is one of my favorites, Bretonia. And this is a very, very deep red geranium that I take cuttings from every year because I'm not positive that next year it will be in the nurseries for me to pick up. because people always like the scarlet ones, but I love that deep blue true red. So taking a few cuttings, holding them over the winter ensures that I've got them. Down there's some caladium pots, and those guys will be coming up probably in the next month or so. So there you have it. You couldn't get much uglier. Even the towel is ugly. And look at the floor where I had an industrial accident this morning with a tapioca. It's not perfect. That is the point. So if you've been thinking about doing it yourself, I encourage you to do that and just work with what you've got. And these plants just need light and heat and moisture. And you too can have a lot of very cheap seedlings by the time spring comes around in a couple months. If you need a little bit more information, you can find it on my website at smalltowngardener.com, or even better, pick up a copy of my new book, Big Dreams, Small Garden, Making Something Extraordinary in Your Ordinary Space, which comes out in just a few days and will help you with things like sticking cuttings in a forsyth pot and how to make one, and or using a cold frame, or starting seedlings. Thank you, and happy gardening, and happy spring.